Hi everyone, welcome back to Hack the Platform, the channel where I break down advanced Microsoft platform capabilities and turn them into practical developer-friendly solutions. Long time no see. If you're working with Power Automate, Microsoft Graph, Microsoft Entra ID and you want to build an event-driven integrations without writing backend code, no Azure Functions, you're in the right place. Before we start, make sure to like this video, subscribe and enable notifications, it really helps the channel. Alright, let's jump in. So this video is based on a real customer question. Can I subscribe to Microsoft Graph notifications using Power Automate without any Azure functions? We want to detect the changes. The customer wanted to know anything about Microsoft Entra ID changes in real time. Profile updates, department or job title changes, account enable, disable, and other attributes changes. So the classic approach is polling Graph API using the Delta query every, let's say, several hours, days, and get the changes, but that's inefficient, might be slow, and certainly this is not real time. So you will query the data after a certain amount of time. And what they really wanted is an event-driven solution. And that's exactly what Microsoft Graph API change notifications can help us with. So that's exactly what they provide. Basically, they will need to create a subscription to the changes of the user's object, and then that subscription will notify Power Automate about it. I implemented this using two Power Automate flows in my small proof of concept. Flow number one, create notifications or create a subscription. You can create Graph subscription using many tools, Graph Explorer, Postman, Command Line Interface, Custom Code, but in this video, I'm using Power Automate itself, so the entire solution stays low-code and self-contained. Important things to know that Microsoft Graph subscription is valid for 4,230 minutes, so about 70 hours. Because of that, this flow should ideally be recurring. It can create the subscription if it doesn't exist and then renew or update the existing subscription later on before it expires. And then the second flow is the HTTP endpoint that Microsoft Graph calls. Yeah, so Microsoft will call this HTTP endpoint. It has two responsibilities. Validate a handshake. Microsoft Graph initially, upon the creation of subscription, sends a validation token. Yeah, and the validation token must be sent back within 10 seconds. The token needs to be sent back as a plain text. So Graph API understands, okay, that listener is actually the one that I'm contacting and it knows about my contact. And then the second one is the processing real notifications. We're parsing the payload, extract maybe the user ID, trigger business logic, get the user profile, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Let's then dive into step by step how I actually achieved that. First of all, to call Microsoft Graph from the Power Automate and create a subscription using the HTTP actions, I need the app registration in Microsoft Entra ID. I will create the app registration, and because everything runs in the background from the flow without user context, without any sign-in activities, I must use application permissions, not delegated one. So let me quickly create an application and add the application permissions. So I created a new app registration, added application permissions, granted admin consent. Also, I will create the client secret and use these credentials in my Power Automate HTTP actions. Okay, and once that's done, I can create then the subscription. So before I'm able to create flow number one that will create for me a subscription, I need actually to have the flow number two, because when creating a subscription, I need to send to Graph API the URL which needs to be contacted every time the changes occur inside Microsoft Entra ID. So let's quickly do that. Create first the dummy flow to generate URL and then start creating a subscription. Now, since the URL is generated for me, I can use that. Now I can create the first flow that will create, maybe even update the subscription. This is the URL from Graph API that needs to be called. Change type should be updated. So whenever the user is updated, the notification URL, I should take it from here. Yeah. Resource, users, expiration date and time. So as already mentioned, it's about 70 hours. So for the demo purposes, I will input the day from tomorrow. Yeah, and then the client state, my super secret state. This is a state that will also be sent in every notification to the second flow. Okay, that's pretty much it. Now, if I run this flow, the Graph API will expect this, will expect the response from this URL, and the Graph API will send the validation token, and the response should contain this validation token to be sent back to the Graph API. Thus, Graph API can acknowledge that the listener is actually listening to change notifications of Graph API to the specific subscription, and it can be registered within the Graph API. Yeah. If we do not send it, we will see the error message. So meanwhile, I'm using the compose just to test how it looks like, what is the body, and then we will see how we can extract this validation token and then eventually send it back to the to Graph API to confirm the subscription. Meanwhile, the request is an error because no validation token was sent back. If we look into this flow, we see that it was contacted, that it started, that we received the this was the body, I think. Okay, interesting. And we need the queries. So we need the queries, the validation token. So the validation token needs to be actually sent back. So let's implement that. Let's first extract the validation token. I can quickly test this again to make sure that I extracted what I needed. If we look at it, yes, we see validation testing client application. So this needs to be sent back to Graph API as a simple text in the body. Let's implement this further. I will implement a condition. Inside the condition, I will check if the validation token is empty. Okay. So if it is not empty, I need to send a response. The response with the status code 200. The content type should be plain text. And the body will be simply validation tokens. After that, I want to terminate the flow I don't want it to be processing anything. And after that, for example, I can get the information about the user who was changed. Okay, so let's then test it again. Now it's green, so everything was okay and the validation happened as it was supposed to happen. We can open and see what's going on here. We see that we obtained the validation token, that the response was sent back and everything was okay. Now, in order to test it completely, we need to update some properties of a user and see that actually accept notifications from Graph API is triggered again. Let's do that. So I will edit the properties of a user and let's say I update his job information. So it took about a couple of minutes to process the changes. The flow was triggered. As you can see, there was no validation token obtained. The flow was triggered with the notification. And after we parse JSON and get the user profile, we see that this is the user which we updated, now the company name and everything. So that's pretty much how it works. Yeah, certainly, as already mentioned, it makes sense to here we are just making a post, we're creating a subscription. However, it makes sense maybe to save the subscription ID. This is the subscription ID, and then regularly update the subscription ID, updating the expiration date time, setting it more further to the future. So for example, if it's today it's 20th, so tomorrow I would update it and make 21st, then the day after tomorrow 22nd, and so on and so forth. So you cannot set the expiration date time like for 2 years ahead. It needs to be within 70 hours, but it makes sense also to rerun this flow using the saved subscription ID and update it regularly. Okay, that's how it works. So let me quickly recap what we have seen in this video. First of all, I've shown you how to create the app registration, add the application permissions to create the subscription in Microsoft Graph API notifications. I was using Power Automate to create that subscription. Also, I showed you how to handle that 10-second validation handshake without any code, without any Azure functions whatsoever. So we're handling that validation token here completely inside the flow, and also detect the Entra ID user changes in real time. We also process the changes events without the Azure functions. If this video was helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe and leave a comment with what Microsoft Graph or Power Platform topic you want me to cover next on Hack the Platform. And as always, all the informations, all the details I've shown you in the video are available in my blog post, the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.